girl Bianca, and welcome back to yet another episode of Are You Alone? But what I'm actually asking you is, are you achieving life on natural euphoria? As always, I like to check in the beginning of my episodes, so I hope you all have been doing well, that your week has been treating you fabulously, hopefully. I'll be real, I know there are times where our weeks definitely can feel really like blah and kind of just like bland and, need a little bit of spice in our lives, but I hope that you're still able to find little bits of just peace and just gratitude in your day-to-day life. So whatever it is, really just continue to find your routine and practice that self-care and really just nourish yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. Speaking of routines, if you missed the last episode of Are You Alone, I had talked about the idea of discipline being the act of motivation. And really what it comes down to is when you have this certain amount of discipline, you create these routines and these habits that hopefully impact your life in a positive way. So if you have yet to, make sure to go check it out. Are You Alone is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and many, many more. However, jumping into today's episode, I had taken another suggestion from one of my supporters. So this episode does go out to Miss Hannah Larson. Her and I had this conversation in regards to handling negative people that we are kind of required to be around every day. So with that being said, this week's episode, I will be focusing on combating people's negativity with our positivity. Now, before I get into it, I'm just going to be real, 'cause obviously that's just who I am. But personally, there are some positive people who kind of rub me the wrong way. I'm not shouting anyone out, but this is kind of like a general category. But I think one of the type of like positive people that rub me the wrong way are the ones that kind of have this like disingenuous, like fake positivity that they give off to people. Because I don't know, I feel like I can pick up on vibes pretty well, and so when I feel like it's not genuine and it's kind of like, fake, I don't gravitate towards that. I don't know, it's just like low-key, like their intentions are really self-absorbed. Really, that's just kind of like I guess you could think of them as like a little bit of a narcissist. But the second thing, and something that I definitely struggle with, is we have our days when we're in these types of moods and we just don't really feel like listening to anyone talk positively because we're just in a mood. And the reason I struggle with it is because I'm that type of person where if I'm in a mood and I'm having a tantrum, I need to sit with my emotions and I need to feel those before I really take in anything someone has to say that's positive or optimistic. On the other side of things, though, I typically do try to be that optimistic person, and I do try to find that silver lining. And this is really, especially apparent in my podcast, I really try to be like a positive motivator type of person. But I get that there are days where people just don't really want to listen to someone be like this positive, pippy person. And if that's maybe how you're feeling today, then you know what? Definitely go sit and be in your mood, feel those emotions, and when that time passes, definitely come back and check this episode out. But the reason I just say this is because this episode is not necessarily going to be like, just be positive and things are gonna get better, because like it's really difficult to do that, especially when you're just constantly surrounded by people who like bring your mood down and kind of just have this negative energy that surrounds you. And I know there's a lot of people who really, really do try like to just find and be like a really optimistic person about life. But there's challenges, especially when there's a large group of people trying to, I guess you could say, dim out your light. And so before we even get into like the brighter side of things, just because I'm trying to be real, I know right now everything that I've been saying kind of comes off like a little bit negative, but you just got to be real with it and kind of point it out, when you see it. But like I said, before getting into the bright side of things, Something that I've definitely noticed, especially within our society, is that many people are really reluctant to change. And with that being said, they rather just sit in their own rain cloud. And the funny thing about that is there are some people who choose to sit in that rain cloud even though they have like an umbrella in their hand. And then, there are other people who sit in the rain cloud who unfortunately maybe don't have the same opportunities or resources to have the umbrella in their hand. However, they're just sitting in their rain cloud and they choose to pout and they choose to really sulk in what's going on. And this idea is really comparable to when Hannah and I were having our conversation, where she had mentioned that some people have this mindset of, well, I am the way that I am and the world has to figure out how to adapt around me. And for those who unfortunately have that mindset, I'm gonna just be real and tell it straight, but when it comes to Mother Nature and it comes to that environment, she don't change for anyone. The only people she actually changed for are for the people who don't believe in climate change. She's dead ass like, if you don't believe in me, I'm going to make you believe in me and show you all the bad things that could happen if you hurt me. That is what you call an independent woman. But anyways, getting back to the whole rain cloud of things, like I had said, there are people who choose to not use the umbrella that they have, but the reason they're choosing not to use that umbrella is because they've decided to make the best of their situation and go and play in the rain. And that's really why I want to put the emphasis on that idea of choice and how ultimately we can choose to not let negative people dictate our own positive energy. Now, this is something that I personally just kind of, think and believe, and I know some may agree or disagree, but one of the things I think we always have control of is ourselves, our mindsets, our thoughts, our acts, and our behaviors, and probably a lot more things kind of in our lives that we have control of that we have yet to really tap in and figure out for ourselves. And I do realize though that there are certain factors that come into play that kind of make us act or think differently, but overall at the end of the day, we really have the choice to act and think in the way that we do. And when I say this, I say it with the intention of the act or thought not harming anyone. I know for some that's just like really like plain and simple, obviously, but I just don't want people to like misinterpret some of the things that I say, and then next thing you know, something harms or puts someone at risk. So I just want to put that out there, disclosure. So for those who may not have picked up on the fact that you shouldn't harm a person. But normally, in certain situations, I would just advise to really like separate yourselves from these negative people. But however, in this scenario, we pose the question of how can we choose to not let this negative energy drain us when we have to be around that negative energy. And so this could occur in like a work setting. It can also happen at home. It can, for me, personal experiences, it can happen on an athletic team. Obviously it can happen in society overall, especially if you've been watching the news. And really just this scenario or this situation kind of applies to anything that you can think of where you have to be around these negative people and you can't get out of that situation quite yet. So for me, if there are people who are intentionally trying to deteriorate your positivity with their negativity, this is just my opinion, but personally I just think that person is emotionally immature. I think they can't accept the fact that psychologically we can create our own hell, and if that doesn't make sense, then I guess rewind and listen to that line again, or you can even ask me questions on my social media. We can have a discussion, but really it comes down to, and this is something, once again, just my opinion, but the quote of life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it is really true when you start to figure out how to control whatever it is that you can control in life. See, the thing about this is when certain negative people see you living in your own bliss, envy starts to creep into their mind, and really they can't help but to try and make your light go dark. So for those of you who might be like struggling or might be in this similar situation, these are some of the things that Hannah and I had talked about, and I kind of just like advised. But one of the things that I would advise if you're stuck in this type of situation is to really, and I like want to put the emphasis of really embrace your you time. And by that, think of it in a sense that you are recharging your energy. You're recharging your battery and your energy enough to a point where you can go out and deal with these negative people you have to be around. And so with that being said, you really have to create a boundary for your you time, and you can control whatever that looks like. So it could literally be like 10 minutes of meditation or yoga. It could be like an hour of journaling. It could be like a 4-hour time span of like what I just mentioned, like yoga, meditation, journaling, or it could be whatever a 4-hour time span you need, like a fat ass nap or something. But whatever, your routine is of, that self-care and that recharge you time, definitely embrace it and take it as it is. But for those who don't necessarily like to have like you time, or like they just rather be around people rather than themselves, one thing I would advise with that is to definitely find a person that you can confide in. Hopefully this person is a person who has good energy, good vibes, to a point where they can kind of radiate that positivity to you to help you recharge. I would suggest though that this person isn't a part of this like group that you're in, I guess you could say, just because one, it prevents like any type of bias, and two, they kind of just become this like escape away from the people you're trying to not let tear you down. And so that's just like what I would advise as far as that. Hopefully though, you're not just like using them as like a therapy friend, and you actually really enjoy like their time and what they are able to bring to the table when it comes to just you being able to confide in them. Now, another thing that I would advise, especially because in this situation you're typically it typically involves more like a group rather than just like one individual. But one thing I would advise when it comes to this is just to, I know it sounds cliche, but just continue to be yourself, because there are certain people within that like group, or just within, that entirety of people that kind of just gravitate towards your energy. And so for an example, like I had said, I've been on a lot of athletic teams, and I've definitely come across a few people who are just kind of like struggling to find the brighter side of things. You eventually grow and are able to find that. But, like I was saying, the one thing you can do is to consistently just be yourself and continue to shine that bright light onto you and onto others, because really the right people will just gravitate towards your energy because they want to be around you and they want to be around your light. Like you could even think of it kind of like a moth when it gets attracted to like light when it's dark out. I know it's like not the best example because moths are like interesting looking creatures, but the concept and the idea is the same, so it's still kind of there. But I've definitely said this in a previous episode as far as just like people gravitating towards your energy, but I think it still holds true. So yeah. However, anything that I had just suggested was from like my own personal experience, and things that I've found helpful when it comes to dealing with like negativity and just like that type of energy. So it could definitely be a different situation for other people, and you may have another way of coping with like toxic people when you're literally required or you have to be around them. And if you do have like different suggestions and advice other than mine, like definitely share it. I would love to hear like what you guys kind of do to really like work through that type of situation. But with that being said, there will definitely be times in our lives where we can't necessarily control our environment. But the one thing we always have control of is ourselves, our mindsets, and our behaviors. I know it can be especially difficult when there are just people who are constantly trying to bring you down with their negativity, and you just feel like you're surrounded by these dark clouds. Now, when it comes to these rain clouds, there are a few things that we can choose to do. We could choose to share our umbrella with someone until the rain decides to stop. We could choose to give our umbrella to someone who might need it a little bit more than we do. Or we could choose to go and enjoy and play in the rain like other people are doing. Whatever the case may be, I promise you that there are definitely better days ahead, and I hope you keep striving and keep pushing towards those better days. But until then, please just continue to be yourself and continue to shine your light in your own life and other people's lives as well. My intention for today's episode was to continue to share the minds and some of the obstacles people face every now and then or on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to bring up the perspective of learning how we can control what we can in our lives and what we necessarily can't. This perspective can definitely be put towards almost anything and everything in life, but once again, everything that I do share and talk about on my podcast are things to just think about or really consider when it comes to your life. Hopefully you found things helpful and are able to use it, and if not, then please help me find a way to help you through active discussion and conversation, because if you just got something negative to say, I ask you kindly to just please miss me with that, because I don't got time for that, nor do I have the energy to really expand on that. So, please and thanks. However, before I do end this episode, and on a very serious note, I do want to extend my deepest condolences to the families of the 8 victims who lost their lives in a hate crime in a massage parlor down in Georgia this past week. With everything that I had talked about in this episode with choice and my choices and what I can decide to choose, I could definitely choose to be angry, and I could definitely choose violence, because that is an option. I understand that, there are definitely times where we need to stand up for ourselves and stand our grounds, and this is especially true when it comes to the marginalized and oppressed groups that we have in our society, and definitely here in the United States. I can't speak on behalf of other countries. I've never lived there, so just saying that. But because of this and what I really try to choose with just my day-to-day life and practice, today I decided to choose advocacy, I decided to choose awareness, and I decided to choose love. So if you can, please make sure to go check in on your family or your friends of the AAPI community. Please make sure to go support local businesses and continue to educate me, yourself, and others on the matter. Unfortunately, our justice system has the umbrella in their hands to really protect us from these rain clouds of inequality and racism. And until they actually decide to do something and something effective about it, I hope that you choose to stand with me and with others under this rain cloud, because sooner or later, the light will definitely be shining through. This concludes yet another episode of Are You Alone? Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I know some of the things that I say in my podcast can be repetitive, but really it's just one of those things that we kind of just need a little bit of a reminder here and there when it comes to certain things. And so with that being said, just continue to practice embracing your individuality while also exercising empathy. Also, make sure to go stream all of the latest episodes of Are You Alone on whatever streaming service that you use. If you are currently still watching, please go give this episode a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and to also turn those post notifications on. Once again, a big shout out to Ms. Hannah Larson for this week's episode. If you want to have a chat and have a conversation, then definitely be on the lookout for my Sunday suggestion box on my Instagram at BiancaK_16. I do post new episodes every other Friday, or at least we'll try to, and maybe our conversation might be the focus of the next episode. However, you can keep up with Are You Alone on Instagram at AYA_podcast and on Facebook at the Are You Alone follow page. Other than that, my name is Bianca, and as we continue this journey, all I ask is that you do your best to achieve life on natural euphoria. Bye!